Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of County Commissioners meeting on June 23rd, 2025. It is 1 p.m. in the afternoon. To get our meeting started off today, we're going to be led by the invocation. I think our pastor didn't show up, so we're going to ask Commissioner Carnahan to do, or Kennard, oh my God. Woo! My apologies. Commissioner Kennard to do the invocation, and Mr. Paul is going to come lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance following that. If you will rise, please.
Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you in prayer today, so thankful for the many blessings in our lives. Lord, we thank you for giving us the opportunity to go before the public today and carry out the public business. We pray that you'd give us open ears and minds to listen to discussion among us, as well as the public input that we'll get today. Lord, we thank you for the freedoms that we enjoy here in the country. We pray that you'd be with our first responders, men and women in military all around the world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair, the roll call, please.
Yes, ma'am. This is a regular meeting of the Citrus County Board of County Commissioners. This 23rd day of June, 2025. In attendance are Chair Rebecca Bays, First Vice Chair Diana Finnegan, Second Vice Chair Jana Barrick, Commissioner Jeff Kennard, Commissioner Holly Davis, County Administrator Steve Howard, and County Attorney Denise A. Diamond Lynn.
Thank you. Mr. Howard, I believe we had some additions.
Yes, E15 release of retainage. This is time sensitive to be in compliance with the Florida Prompt Payment Act. Payment due within 25 business days. Also additional information, E14 Inverness FBO lease, Wright Rudder Aviation correspondence. So we've given you those attachments in your packet, and the links in the attachment go to a Gmail account. We were unable to access those through IT, but everything that we could access, we gave to you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Just one moment, please.
Oh.
And if it's okay with the rest of the board, immediately following after we do we have any proclamations today? No, we have no proclamations. I would like to move up E2 and E3. The sheriff is in the office, so we could go ahead and vote on that and get him out of here.
Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Motion to approve the agenda with the addition of E15 and more info on E14, and I was going to suggest the same thing. Awesome.
Second. So I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Finnegan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Can we go ahead and take E2 and 3 now before proclamations, since we're ahead of schedule? I meant time certains.
What was the number again?
E2 and 3.
Madam Chair, motion to approve E2.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Madam Chair, motion to approve E3.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Finnegan. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right. Now let's go, we're still
Madam
ahead
Chair,
of schedule.
motion to approve E1, A through
I think we have
K.
to do the consent agenda first.
Oh, I'm just trying to move us right along, ma'am.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion, go ahead.
I've said enough.
Motion to approve the consent agenda in its entirety.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis,
Second.
a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there Any further discussion? Or any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Oh, man, you guys are rolling it today.
You ready now?
Now you can do E1 if you like.
Motion to,
10 minutes to open to the public, or you want to move to E1?
If we want to do, we can do 10 minutes to open to the public. If there's anyone wanting to address open to the public, we have 9 minutes. Or- yeah. For the record, please state your name and your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Anthony Ayo. I live at 5432 North Pecos Terrace, Beverly Hills, Florida, 34465. All right, I'm here to address an issue that is way before most of your time. Okay, but it's come to light for me. And I'm like, wow, I didn't know this was happening in this county. So in 2016, the state of Florida gave this county millions of dollars to extend water lines to homes that were affected with arsenic in their wells, high levels of arsenic. Now, through my research, I've determined that the EPA said that 10 parts per billion is maximum contamination level, okay? There are homes on this Holiday Drive off of Turkey Oak that have exceeded 24 parts per billion, which is alarming, okay? And just so you know, this one particular house has a woman who has 3 kids, and for pregnant women, the EPA says that's 0.000 for pregnant women. So it's really serious about this particular problem. Now, the water lines have been extended on Turkey Oak, but they haven't been extended onto Holiday Drive. And I'm quite alarmed about it. These people are living, you know, very tight budgets, and they have to buy bottled water for everything. And that's serious. One of the homes, I was informed, has Giardia in their well. He can't touch the water. Okay, so I think that we really need to look at this, whether or not the state continues to give us funding or not. This county is obligated to provide fresh, clean water through our Citrus County utilities to those homeowners. We cannot allow them to go without clean drinking water. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Chan, speaking on behalf of Wright Rudder Aviation. County staff has targeted our organization and has been proceeding forward to find any possible means to exit the contract that the county created. In emails between county staff, it is clear that they are fishing for any possible excuse not to honor the contract that the county signed. It goes so far that county staff actually asked the attorney if verbiage from a separate, different contract can be leveraged as an excuse to not honor our contract. Wright Rudder Aviation is in compliance with our lease, as required, and is not in breach. Although staff admitted the evidence that demonstrates our compliance, I have provided it to you directly. Of note, county staff has still, to this day, unreasonably withheld approval of even a single lease, and has not provided any feedback as to why a single lease has not been approved over 7 years of time. Our request is simply that the county honors the existing contract and allows its constituents to enjoy quiet enjoyment. The decision you make here today sets precedents for future businesses who are invited by the county to make large investments and create local career jobs in the economy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name's Joe. I live in Beverly Hills. Not an expert, but Florida has a statute that says the publics can discuss the merits of any matter that they like that's in place for action in front of the boards during the public input sections of the meetings. Now, as I look at Citrus County, I find quasi-judicial proceedings that and rules that apply to the quasi-judicial proceeding. So during that proceeding, for example, I would be able to get up and have 3 minutes input anytime I wanted. However, I can find no Citrus County, anything that says that voters are not allowed to address the board on any matter that's up for board input. In fact, there's, like I said, a statute that says that we can't. So on the May 27th board meeting, it was very discouraging. And with respect, there was some laughter or scoffing even as the citizens and the voters tried to bring their issues up. Now, I couldn't tell if it was at the process, the laughing or scoffing, or if it was at the voter. But, you know, when the clock is running, it's hard to differentiate if you're laughing at the process or if you're laughing at the voter. It's very hard to figure that out. So anyway, I do think that shows predisposition against the citizen argument. And so for that very reason, and by the rules and by the statute, respectfully, I think that the chair shouldn't be allowed to have input on the sandmine petition coming forward. Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to address the public or the board? Wow. Moving along. All right, we're going to close open to the public. Board members, would you like to address any of the issues in open to the public?
I would, since we have 3 minutes. I would just say to the last gentleman, Joe, I didn't get your last name, that it's difficult to sit in this seat, and sometimes you have inappropriate reactions up here that don't necessarily reflect who you are inside or your dedication to voters. Since you addressed the chair directly, I would say that you were mostly, she was trying to lighten the mood, and absolutely she was not laughing at voters. I know her too well. She was laughing at the process and not in a happy way, because we're in a tough position up here. Please remember that the more that we quote unquote break quasi-judicial, which is we would have to then disclose ex parte to be legal, we have to give a fair shot to both the applicant and to the citizens. If we screw that up, we can be sued by the applicant, and then we all end up paying any judgment, and it still goes through. So it's a lose-lose situation for citizens. So personally, I am up here to protect your interests, and I believe the same is true of all 4 of my colleagues. So if I've ever given offense, I apologize.
And I'll follow up on it. The laughter was, I was smiling and trying to make light of the situation because people kept coming and talking about something that could potentially, you can't talk from the back, sorry. We're only allowed to take input during the quasi-judicial, and when they were trying to come up and make comments, we kept having to stop them because we're taking comments out of order from when we would have a quasi-judicial, and then we can't use any of the testimony that they're using at that time during that meeting and open to the public at the hearing itself. So it was only saying that we kept having people come, and it was saying, I'm sorry, you keep bringing up a quasi-judicial issue, but we can't take input. And I'm sorry, you've already spoke to open to the public, so I can't engage in a dialogue. But I would be happy beyond this meeting to talk to you about it. I was not laughing at the people. It was the circumstances in which we were going through and trying to explain. It is complicated. It's no different than having like a jury trial. So if you were having a jury trial, the judges are not allowed to talk with people to try to get information about what's going to happen at the trial. That's really the gist of what was going on. And so I meant no disrespect. It was just all in jest of trying to get people to understand why we should not be hearing information on something that would come before this board in a quasi-judicial matter. So if you'd like to leave, if I can get somebody, maybe Veronica, if you can get his name and phone number, and then we can talk about it later. Commissioner Finnegan.
Because a lot of people watched and they couldn't see for the first speaker, he walked out with our expert, so I wanted people to know that the county is obviously on top of that and is concerned and taking care of any water issues. For the second speaker that Veronica's taking out of the room, before you take him, Veronica, 1 second, please. If I may, Madam Attorney, because it is, I think, confusing to people because I guess now, like I understand, but I see the point of the public, they can email us because it's public record, and this is a publicly notified meeting where people are allowed to speak about anything. That does make me, and probably all these people, give pause. Can you explain that? Because I guess I could, not being the attorney, argue it both ways. I can see the way that we're the judges, and the other person was not here to defend themselves, so we couldn't have the hearing, and that makes perfect sense, I think, to all of us. But to the public, they understand that they can't talk to us, you know, out of the schoolhouse, if you will, but this is a public meeting where everyone knows that anyone could speak about anything. Can you help them? Can you get us through this?
Well, I think one of the things the gentleman quoted was the statute that provides that citizens must be allowed an opportunity to have public input before the commission votes on a matter. And that is true, and that is the statute. However, with regard to quasi-judicial hearings, those occur after they've been noticed and everyone has an opportunity to provide evidence. The key missing link, if you will, with what happened with the hearing that everyone, or the meeting that everyone's talking about, is the Southworth mine application had not been noticed for that meeting. So while there was an issue of sand for the parkway that was noticed for that meeting, the Southworth mine application was not noticed. And so I think that's where the confusion occurred to the public. They believed they could talk about sand for the parkway, which they could have, of course, because that was the agenda item, but it was the specific pending application that wasn't noticed that they kept trying to talk about. And when things are quasi-judicial in nature, the courts have said that any communications that occur outside of the actual hearing that is noticed for that matter are considered they are presumed to be prejudicial to that application. And so the board has to be careful not to take testimony or take evidence outside of that hearing, because whatever your decision is to approve the application or deny the application, that decision could be challenged and you could lose in court if you consider things outside of the hearing. So unfortunately, that's case law that dates back many, many years, and it has to do with the issues of due process.
I think you explained that very well. I hope that people listening and have the same concerns have a better understanding. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? All right. We are back on schedule, so we are going to go back to H1. All about roads.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, Walt Eastman, Citrus County Tech Services. I have with me today Mr. Campbell McLean. Campbell's with the Office of Gray Robinson, and Campbell is one of our team members who handles matters involving acquisition, eminent domain. And today we're going to go through a presentation all about roads, and we're going to talk about how transportation projects are developed. What are Citrus County's anticipated projects in transportation? Project costs, as well as some funding options. And with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. McLean.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me today. As Walt and I joke, this is sort of bring your attorney to work day. And we get to talk about a topic that usually sends people running at cocktail parties. So it's your last chance, folks. My name's Campbell McLean. I am a real property attorney. I'm an expert in the area of eminent domain, and I'm the co-author of the Florida Bar's Eminent Domain Manual, Chapter 2 on the power of eminent domain, which is what you exercise. And I'm happy to be here to talk about road projects, which is near and dear to our heart. As Walt mentioned, we're going to talk about these 4 topics today, and I am charged with the first one, which is really the anatomy of a road project. How do you get through and how do you prepare and produce a road project? So I'd like to start off with a little quiz. I'm not sure if anyone wants to take a stab at this. Does anybody recognize where we are in Citrus County? It'll be evident in a moment. The question today is, how do you get from this, from 1951, to this? So this is the County Road 491 and County Road 46 intersection. The only giveaway from 1951 was State Road 491 and, believe it or not, Horace Allen Boulevard, which was prevalent on the map. It's interesting to see how things have grown in this area since then, and they're only continuing to grow. So the answer of how you get from there to this is legally. As your attorney, I have to say that. But to put it differently, it's following a process that saves the county time and money. But you need to follow the process the right way. Now, local government is charged with protecting the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens. That includes preservation and growth of the local transportation network. But importantly, the failure to abide by the correct procedures will put at risk your ability to get state and federal funding and risk your ability to take property through eminent domain. So, step one. Step one is planning, and this is simple enough. Generally speaking, we identify the need, we develop a concept of how to fix the issue, and we list the proposed solution in the county's planning documents. Now, at one point in time, I'm sure that this all occurred through a commissioner driving down the road and thinking it's taking too long to get to the county seat, or a mayor that says, you know, I don't like that pothole. And I'm sure they ran down the hallway and told somebody to put it on a list of things to do. But in this day and age, we're a lot more sophisticated. So we have planners that do this work for us, and they do this through a logical review of available data. Now, in Citrus County, you're a member of the Hernando Citrus Metropolitan Planning Organization. I wonder why it's not the Citrus Hernando Metropolitan Planning Organization, but that's before my time. This agency works with staff very closely to identify various needs throughout the county. And a project begins by identifying those needs and deficiencies based on a review of available data. The MPO then prioritizes the recommended short and long-term transportation improvements. Now, what this results in is what I call a very acronym-heavy list of items. So you've got the 2050 Long-Range Transportation Plan, the LRTP, the Transportation Improvement Program, or the TIP, Unified Planning Work Program. I don't really have a quick, pithy summary for that one, or the list of priority projects, or your LOP list. So that's simple enough. And projects can literally sit in this stage for a very long time, depending on the next step in the process, which is funding. Generally, after a road project in particular is identified, the various component parts or the development steps must then be funded. Funding can be designated for one or more of the required steps for completion. These are the steps I'm going through today, but you can break them up into various pieces, and you'll see this on your plan, your CIP, which is basically when things get serious, you get down to the 5-year CIP budgeting plan, which says when a step is supposed to occur and how much funding is available for that particular task. Step 3 is to study. Now, the study phase helps guide decision-making by evaluating the potential impacts of a transportation project. The goal is to develop the best solution to the transportation needs that offer the greatest benefit for the least impact. Now, how do you do that? So basically, it's expert heavy. You need to get various folks out there with particular skill sets to go review the following kind of information: your topographic, environmental, archaeological, hydrologic, geologic. All of those people go out and study the road corridor to understand more about the area that you're dealing with. For example, on County Road 46, we had a chemical contamination that needed to be cleaned up. That was considered by this board as part of its review and approval of that route of the project. It was nominal enough to where we could clean it up affordably, and that's how we proceeded. On County Road 491, we had an archaeological site that needed to be addressed, in addition to a cattle dip vat that was contaminated with arsenic, where they would walk cattle through to get ticks off them and various pests, and that's how they protected folks. But it just sat there for years. It was buried. We had to address that. Now, everything from gopher tortoises to muck to sinkholes to underground rivers gets identified and examined, we hope. And these factors are then considered by the design engineer in coming up with the next step, which is alternative routes. So alternative routes are developed using the collected data. Alternative routes are reviewed and then compared to both one another and to a no-build situation. It's always usually important. What are we doing compared to what we have today? Is the status quo good enough, or should we select something else? So written analyses are then prepared, which summarize the study process. And then the question is, how do you do that? So there's really two basic ways which we do studies in the state of Florida. You could say there's a third for maybe large counties that have maybe an engineer that's specialized in some very limited thing, and they can do it by themselves. But typically, studies are developed one of two ways. First, county and consultants, county staff and consultants. So this is what Citrus County does. We have a team that we assemble for all of your projects. That team approach then does all this study material. You have people from legal to appraisers to engineers that are all involved in looking at the alternative routes and preparing a memorandum that would then come back to this board with those alternative recommendations. This is usually more efficient and flexible, and especially as a quicker process. It also allows for direct involvement by the people that will be using this information throughout the project. That is sort of that's a critical issue that Walt and I talk about quite a bit, as opposed to the second option, which is consultants only. Now, the DOT calls this the PD&E process. That stands for Project Development and Engineering. And typically, these are reports that are produced by outside engineering firms after being awarded the assignment through a competitive qualification process. This is required when state or federal funds are involved or included in any part of the project, but it's typically more time-consuming and expensive. And what it does is it silos folks into little component parts. Now, when you're dealing with a large county or DOT, a large bureaucratic agency, where you've got just too many projects at one time, this is the solution. You have to bite these off in smaller chunks, prepare these reports, and handle it that way. But you lose the interconnectedness. So when I, as your attorney, need to know about a particular issue, like that cattle dip vat on a piece of property, I'm coming in after that study has been done. I'm coming in after folks have gone out and tried to negotiate with the owners, and I'm having to learn that from scratch. So it makes it a bit disjointed and also adds to the time that you're working on these things. Now, the next part is your role in all of this. In each instance, no matter which route you're choosing here to analyze and study a road project, they have to come back to you, to the board. You're the one with the authority, and you have the discretion to make that decision. So the report comes in, and what's important is that you consider the 5 factors, as we call them. Some people call them the Gulf Ridge factors. There's even an acronym for it, but we call them the 5 factors. And so when you're looking at alternative routes, which is one of the factors, you have to look at long-range planning, environmental conditions, safety, and costs. There's lots of ways that you can do this, but all of this is usually baked into the cake of the study or the report that you're reading or reviewing. Some commissioners get into the nitty-gritty and they want to know all about the details. Some commissioners look at it and say, that looks good. Either way, it's your discretion as the elected body, and it's important. Now, it's not the only factors you consider. You can also look at things like public convenience, economic development, noise. These things can all weigh in on your decision. So long as you look at the 5 required factors, any other factors that you consider are gravy. Now, let's go to the next one. After you've had an opportunity to review and discuss the findings, the board then exercises its discretion to approve with modifications, or deny the project, deny the recommendation of the route of that roadway. But once it is approved, then so long as the funding is designated and secured, then the board will direct staff to issue a request for qualifications, an RFQ, for engineering, design, and post-design services. So, step 4 is design. Now you have your engineer on board, and you have a licensed engineer who's going to prepare a set of construction plans that will dictate how the project's going to be constructed. Now, that engineer will have to take all the information from the study phase. Now, again, in Citrus County's instance, that design engineer usually comes along in the study phase, and so they're helping get their feet wet with the project details well before they start having to design it. If you do the PD&E process, then you'd probably have a new engineer come along that would get awarded the bid to then now start designing. That new engineer is going to have to go out and look at some of the same very issues, some of the environmental and contamination issues. But they're also going to have to get survey for the whole thing. They're going to have to design and review and design drainage basins for ponds and look at utilities and things like that that need to be moved because they're in the way of what you're trying to build. So at the end, when what you're paying them for is to produce a complete plan set that you would hand to a contractor, that plan set includes things like stormwater and drainage plans, utility plans, the roadway plan itself, lighting plans. That would include street lighting and pedestrian lighting, and then you'd have signing and pavement marking. What kind of signs are going to go and where? How are those going to look? Maintenance of traffic is very important these days, especially when you're widening an existing road. You want to make sure that people are still able to travel safely while construction is going on. So all of that gets put into a plan set. These will usually go through stages of 60, 90, and then 100% plans as they go through the review process with county staff. And then they also are going to be working on permitting while they're doing this. So they'll be going to SwiftMud to make sure that they can design the drainage system the way that they want to. DEP and DOT or wherever else you need to go to. If you have archaeological issues, you have to get another permit from the state. It's a very involved process, but all of this is going on contemporaneously while they are designing the road. Ultimately, then you would finally do an RFQ for what we call engineering CA and CEI services. This is a third party that is hired to come in to review the plans to make sure as a double check that they are good and that they will work the way they're intended. They also do inspections. So as it's being built, they're working with the contractor to make sure that the contractor is implementing the design engineer's vision and taking care of problems as they come up. That can be important too when a contractor has a problem with a particular design. You know, was it the design engineer's fault or is the contractor being difficult? They get in and arbitrate a lot of these things for you. So once that happens, we're now ready for right-of-way acquisition. And I was going to mention this at the end of my presentation, but I think it's important to say that the first 3 steps of planning and funding and study, those are more linear steps. So they can happen one after another. When you get into design and right-of-way acquisition and the last step is construction, those can tend to overlap in lots of different ways, and that's completely normal. So right-of-way acquisition, you know, if you've got roads that have existing right-of-way available, I think County Road 46 is a great example. When we acquired that road and built that road, we built it 4 lanes, expandable to 6 lanes. So when you need to widen that road in the future, you're going to put another lane in the middle on either side of the road, and you don't need to do anything else. We've designed the ponds to be big enough, the right-of-way is big enough, so your future needs there are taken care of. But as is most of the counties and most of the cases, you don't have that kind of room. So if you're widening an existing road, or if you're building a new road, which Citrus County doesn't have many of those needs, but they do happen from time to time where you have to blaze a brand new road, you're going to need right-of-way acquisition. And again, the process is important here. If you do the process the correct way, you won't have problems. But if you don't, then you could be massively delayed. So, road projects that need new right-of-way will need to follow Florida's procedures so that any property right that can't be obtained by gift or purchase can be acquired by eminent domain. So when you get into the right-of-way acquisition process, basically how that works is the required parcels are identified by the design engineer. This can be anything from fee simple right-of-way to various different types of easements, or even a workspace, or even sometimes we obtain licenses. If an owner wants to have a driveway that's flatter or something that's an accommodation to an owner, they'll give us a license to come in and do that and make it better for them. But they identify those interests. Then staff or other consultants go out to analyze each of those parcels. This is surveyors, land planners, site engineers, environmentalists, legal counsel, appraisers. We get involved to make sure that we are preparing an offer of compensation that meets the requirements of Florida law. The consultants will then prepare various reports that then get condensed into an appraisal, and then arm's length negotiations occur with the owners. Now, for those owners where you cannot condemn something voluntarily, you need to go through the eminent domain process. What that requires is that I would come back to you and present a resolution for eminent domain. So this is now you're determining that we absolutely need these properties for the public purpose of building this roadway, and you make that resolution. That resolution gets attached to every lawsuit that we filed so a judge can review it to make sure it's followed and consistent with Florida law. So once you've approved that resolution, we have to make statutory offers and send out statutory notices required by Florida law. We have to wait at least 30 days before we can file a lawsuit. And then we go through what's called the order of taking process. That's usually, Florida has a 2-stage process. So for every eminent domain lawsuit, mostly these days, they exercise the power of Chapter 74, which is called the quick take statute. This allows you to get your property up front. You put a deposit in the court registry, which the owner can remove. So while you have the benefit of their land, they have the benefit of your deposit. And then while we're building our road on that land, we're still discussing or arguing over the value of that acquisition. There have been times where the entire construction project is completed, the road is open, and some of these cases are still going on because there's a battle about what the fair price is for the land that we acquired. But meanwhile, the public is not held up. The public can move forward and build its project and meet its time deadlines for construction. So that leads us to the next phase, which is the final step. Now, construction is sometimes simple, but if you talk to Walt in any detail, it's not ever what it seems. But essentially, once all the property interests have been acquired, we're ready to go let the project for bid. So we obtain bids, and the bid is awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Construction then ensues, typically with relocating existing utilities, clearing and grubbing the right-of-way. You'll see those silt fences that go up. And then they would build their drainage ponds, is usually the usual steps. Meanwhile, the CEI, who you've already hired, is monitoring all of that construction and working in conjunction with the contractor and county staff. As construction is nearing completion, we would prepare a final right-of-way map, which is a declaration of here are the property interests that the county owns. We're going to record that in the public records, and that lays out the roadway corridor for generations to come. And at that point, you should be done. I call it the big scissors moment, where you can go out on the roadway and chop a piece of ribbon and have an event. But like I said, there's some things that can sometimes linger. And then when it comes down to payment, so if it's a big enough road, you may have bonded it out, so you're going to be paying that off for a few years to come. But the project is in place, and the county moves on to the next project. So at this point, I've given sort of a summary of what these steps are, and I'd like to just ask if you have any questions. All right. Well, then, I'd like to turn this back over to Mr. Eastman, who will talk about our last 3 questions to be answered in this.
All right, we're going to change gears a bit and move on to projects within the county, costs for projects, and then talk about some revenue. I know we've talked about resurfacing and pavement management of our network. Again, 1844 miles in the county, 312 are major minor collectors, over 1,500 are local roads. The bolded $40 million number it's not a firm number. We asked Mont McDonald, the folks working on our model, to look at our network. We don't have all the data yet, but just for today's meeting, we said, based upon what you know of our network today and what other counties are doing for maintaining their network, what would be a ballpark number? And this is what they came back with. This is the number we're looking at to maintain our network at a satisfactory level.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Finnegan.
Well, you said that the information hasn't come back yet, though, so this was just a guess. So with all due respect, I know we have done this in the past. It's my pet peeve that we throw out numbers to the public without the backup information, because it makes people a little excited. And I could be one of those people, because it seems like just maybe 2 to 3 years ago, the number given to maintain that we really needed to be at, which boards before me was adding 0.2 mils to get to that $10 million mark. If we got to 10 million, the world is great and the problems are solved. Then it seems like maybe 2 years ago, it became 20 million. This is double that number, but we don't have any reasons or backup why. So I'm just putting it out there. People can't get excited yet, and please do not throw out numbers until we really have something more concrete that comes before the board that this board really has to tackle. I can only imagine all the comments on social media and our inboxes will be filling up because we've just kind of thrown a guess out there. And I can't imagine that it's doubled in 2 years. And if so, I guess how in the world were our estimates so far off?
Well, I can explain a little bit about that. And you're right, it is a rough number based upon Polk County's numbers. The 20 million at the time was looked at for local roads, but the other 20 involves the major and minor collectors. That's where the
So
second 20 comes
expansion,
in.
are you including that for expansion?
No, this is to maintain the network. But again, it's a rough number. It was just for discussion for today.
Well, I'm discussing it.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Davis.
that was going to be my very direct question. So that 40 million is huge. Right now, we're at, what, 16.9 or something? Does that include SCOP funding, state funding, federal funding, anything for, I assume?
That was just
Because
the,
I'm with Commissioner Finnegan, this did not just double.
Right.
they would be
Apples to apples.
Yep. The 40 covers, again, local roads as well as the larger roadways. The
External
entire network.
funding for US highways and state roads.
Not state roads. Nope, those are just county roads.
That's just, but we're getting funds from other sources for those.
Currently, we're getting SCOP funding, and we have a slide on SCOP
Yeah,
funding.
okay. Carry on, sorry.
Okay, just to give an example. Again, 312 miles. This is what the county major roadway network looks like. Just for sake of relevance, that's essentially a road from Citrus County to Atlanta, Georgia. That's what we need to maintain.
Commissioner-
Just,
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Walt.
yeah, in FY '25, the board was, it was great for us for resurfacing and pavement management. We were able to get 64 miles of roadway treated, full depth reclamation, or mill and pave. That was with an $18.7 million budget. That's for FY '25. This is a list of your SCOP projects, current and upcoming. So in FY '25, Turner Camp, that project is actually getting underway right now. Deltona is on your agenda today to approve the contract for Deltona. In '26, we have Apopka and Mustang. In '27 is Gospel Island. '28 is Dunklin, and '29 is Rehill Kensington. And just a reminder for the board, the DOT is capping our SCOP dollars at 1.8 million. And we're only getting those dollars until we hit a population of 200,000, unless the legislature changed that population number. And I do know that DOT checks the population numbers annually. Hernando County at one point was back in for SCOP dollars, but they once again exceeded the 200,000 mark, and DOT immediately, that next fiscal year, turned that off. So they do check and they do monitor.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Barrick?
I watch the roads very carefully. I really do. And I understand these connector-collector roads. There's a lot more connector-collector than people on this board realize, okay? And the residential is residential as opposed to the connector-collector. That's where when it says 312 miles, I've been watching with the SCOP money very, very carefully as you're adding and getting things done. So that's why when I see the 40 million, that doesn't surprise me at all. Okay, and I know some of the others may be surprised, but we're not getting anything, we're getting a quarter done of what we need to get done. And that's where the problem lies. There's not going to be the funds to do what actually needs to be done to bring our roads up to standards. And you know, a lot of people say, you know, and I have been one that says roads, roads, roads. But there's a big difference between residential roads and roads. Okay? Cardinal is a connector-collector, but it's also one that's gonna have to be widened.
Yes.
Okay? Whereas Rock Crusher is a collector road. I don't know if that's gonna ever have the chance to be widened because that's gonna take a lot of eminent domain land and a lot of money to buy the properties on either side. So the thing is, we have to go by what you're telling us, plus watch carefully what we're actually expanding. Because 40 million is just a drop in the bucket as we move forward. So I do appreciate and I do understand where this 40 million comes from.
All right. And moving on to the larger, these would be the capacity projects. This is a list of the road projects in the county and the MPO's TIP, the Transportation Improvement Plan. I believe 491 is ranked number 1. We've seen this before. It goes from Pine Ridge up to State Road 200, and this is a listing of the additional roadways that are in the MPO TIP. The dollars that are shown there are in current dollars. So again, as time goes on, the costs do change. And just for reference, I did include a slide here showing the state roads. The state has 100 miles of roads in the county, whereas our major roads, we have 3 times that amount. Revenue side, we have gas tax revenue. So it just shows, there's a table there showing our historic dollars that are collected. You see we roughly get between $8 and $9 million a year. Out of these funds, we have our SCOP match dollars, pavement management, bridge maintenance, bond, as Campbell mentioned, we do have debt on some prior roads, so we have bond payments, and road improvements in general. And also, I want to call your attention to a couple footnotes, 1 and 2. Two pieces of the gas tax are scheduled to sunset in 2034. We do have impact fees, and as mentioned before, we do have some ad valorem, the transportation millage we've been collecting. And lastly, as you can see with the revenue side versus some of our expenses coming up, we do want to call your attention to some options that I know you all have been discussing in the past. Again, gas taxes, part of it's going to sunset. Impact fees were just recently reevaluated. They'll be coming back to you. Transportation ad valorem, hopefully that continues to increase or is adjusted. MSBU, I know there's been discussion about MSBU. Do we want to do local communities, or how would that be handled? And MSTU, countywide. Sales tax, and we did include financing here for the larger capital projects where we have expansion, where again, we would assume additional debt. And with that, I'll turn it over to any additional questions.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Kennard?
Well, I hate to spring this one on you, but I'm going to.
Okay.
Do you know off the top of your head, do we have any transportation or bonds that are close to falling off, that we're close to getting to the end of?
I do not know that answer. I don't know if Ms. Luckham is here today. Ms. Luckham may.
46.
Thank you, Barb.
I don't know. We have a 2015 and a 2020. I believe they're both 20 years. So I would assume that it's 2035 and then 2040.
Okay. Next year, we'll spring it on Tammy.
So in our Citrus County infrastructure needs and growth that you presented some time back, we have the milling and resurfacing at roughly 173,000 per mile, open grade, which was 339,000, and full depth is at 706,000.
Yes.
And you stated in there that 50% of our county maintained roads are over 20 years old without significant resurfacing or reconstruction. And I believe you also said in there that we have an estimated 300 million in estimated needs for resurfacing, widening, and intersection improvements. Do you happen to know what intersection improvements that would include at this point in time?
We do allocate dollars in the CIP for intersection improvements. We don't have anything specifically identified today, but I do know, well, there's some on state roads, but there are a handful of county roads that can certainly use some turn lanes. I know we're going to be starting one on 491 in Hampshire. That'll be a turn lane project. And what we typically do is monitor crash data as well as complaint residents is a big plus when we get that information, and we'll monitor to see if warrants are triggered for turn lanes at that point. But right now, the only one we have forecasted is Hampshire 491.
So walk us through the process a little bit about when we talk about state and federal funding for capacity issues. Can you?
Between Campbell and I, we'll go through this. Campbell went through the process primarily following if it were county dollars, where we would go through the process presented today, do the planning, the study, funding. The county would bring on the experts to do the plan and acquisition. It is a very I call it a unique process that Citrus County does. Not everyone does that, the way we do it. Once you federalize a project, even 1 penny is all it takes anywhere along the process. It's a total game changer because we as county staff can no longer do those projects. It becomes federalized, and DOT then gets brought into the mix to manage and implement the project. Now, it does bring federal dollars with it, but that doesn't mean that the county is not responsible for a portion of those funds. Typically, it's a minimum of 20%. Usually, it's about 50% of the cost is borne by the local agency. There's a joint funding agreement between the county and DOT. DOT manages the project, and they implement it in their form and process. As Campbell mentioned, it's very siloed. They do the PD&E, they'll do engineering, they'll do acquisition. They're almost all separate steps. And it is very, very time consuming. We would typically do a project in, an usual project, 5 years, 6 years from initial funding until project completion. DOT is typically, depending upon funding, 15 years, just as a rough number.
So then, if you just, let's take, I'm gonna give, sake of argument, 491, would, since that's a local road, but it's also been identified as an evacuation route, would we qualify for any state funding?
Potentially, but again, even with state dollars, state handles their funds just very similar as if it's federal. So we'd have to comply with the same criteria if they're state funds. If it's an appropriation, that's different. Those dollars are allocated to the county through DOT, and DOT allows us to implement them with our rules and regs, with DOT oversight.
So then walk us through the step, because a lot of times what we hear from the state is they do not want us asking for appropriations for roadworks to fund out of cycle through the Transportation Trust Fund. And I'm doing this kind of as an exercise because a lot of times people, our citizens, our taxpayers, have questions about this, and I'm trying to educate as well.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's a finite point. If we ask for an appropriation, you do not want those funds to come out of the Transportation Trust Fund. If you do, those dollars are taken from the county's allocated dollars through DOT. So all they're doing is just moving Citrus County dollars from a project we have in the work program and reallocating it to your appropriation request. So something within the county is going to suffer. If you make an appropriation request to the legislature and it's from the general revenue, that's different. Those are dollars that are not affecting the transportation fund.
I would add that I have a number of government clients, and some of them will proceed with the project with the idea that it might be federalized down the road, which means they have to go through those steps along the way. It affects everything from how you do your study to how you approach property owners. You have to keep meticulous records. I know of situations where a county was seeking to get federal funds on a project, and they went and audited the entire project and realized they had done it wrong, so they held up the funding. They made the county go back. It took them 2 or 3 years to get it all sorted out because they failed to abide by the right process. And so, and with changes in administration, you never know who may just be trying to move money from one place to another, but it could put you at risk. But that's why following these processes are very important from the outset. You can't just decide after you've been going along sort of our typical regime to say, oh, we want to seek a grant from the feds, and now it's federalized. No. You've got to start back over and redo a lot of work to make sure it meets their criteria. So if you know in advance that you want to apply for that, it's certainly doable. But changing midstream is usually difficult and time-consuming.
I'll just add to that. County Road 486, back when the county was widening that roadway, the roadway was funded by the county. We had some TRIP dollars or SIGP dollars on that road. And as we were doing a phase heading west, the board and the staff actually tried to get a federal appropriation to help pay for just pay for the multi-use path, not the road, just the path. And the federal dollars came through, but as a result, it would federalize the entire project. And we'd have to start back at the acquisition stage and reopen those settlements. So the board and county staff said, never mind, please take your funding back.
I got a question.
Commissioner Barrett?
All right, so now I'm gonna go to another direction. MPO.
Yes.
MPO is Hernando and Citrus County. That's state funding, state roads like 41 and 200. Okay? Do you personally feel that Citrus County has been slighted because we're not getting our roads done where Hernando did? In other words, 41 out here. We're going up to the bridge, and then we're stuck with a 2-lane bridge. And to me, it's laughable. It really is, that we're gonna go from 4 lanes to a 2-lane bridge again, to a 2-lane road again, okay? And then when we get 200, we get to the bridge, and we've got a 2-lane road again. Now, that is state funding, those 2 roads.
US 41 is a state road and state funded. And the reason why you're seeing the phasing the way you're seeing it is it's all funding generated. I can tell you that nobody likes to see a phase in a roadway because every time you phase it, it creates throwaway money. Every taper is money that's thrown away. You have to do another contract for another phase. It costs a lot of money to phase a project, but sometimes you don't have a choice. You don't have the revenue. I do know that DOT is doing it in pieces, and they are continuing after the bridge to work on the next phases. And they're continuing farther north. They're also looking at State Road 200.
Well, I know Hernando got a whole bunch of state roads done, whereas Citrus County really hasn't. So, you know, I wondered, is Citrus County being slighted? Is it due to population? Is it due to whoever's on the board? And I hate to say, we have 2 people on the board here, and I know they've been trying because, you know, they keep bringing things. So I'm wondering, is there something that's gone wrong in the past that Hernando gets the money and Citrus County doesn't? Because we do have the projects, and we do have the need, and we do have the people.
Commissioner Kennard?
Yes, I'll go ahead and chime in. Highway 19, all of that was done with state money. Highway 44 East, that's currently under total resurfacing and signalization at, I believe it's at Gospel Island Road, that's state money. Highway 19, the next phase of this that's getting started from, I believe it's 44 out to Snug Harbor Road. That's getting all resurfaced, and there's sidewalk projects that are going along with that. That's state funding. Highway 41, right now, that you just talked about in phases, that's all state money. We have an absolutely fantastic relationship with our colleagues on the MPO board. There is mutual support for each other's projects, stuff that they want to get done down there, stuff that we want to get done up here. And we are not getting slighted one bit. In fact, DOT has been to, as long as I've been on that board, they have told us more than a couple times, there are calculations that they use based on population, on how much money DOT should be putting into each one of these counties. And Citrus County, much of the time that I've been on there, has gotten close to 200%, if not in excess of 200% of what their formula tells them they should be putting in up here. So DOT is not sliding us whatsoever. They are putting a pile of money coming into the county.
Okay, I'd like to thank you for explaining that, because there's a lot of people in the audience that don't understand that. Okay, and you need to see what our county commissioners have actually been doing for our county. And it's stuff that we as citizens don't see, but we need to hear. And I thank you very much for explaining it.
It is millions and millions and millions of dollars that they're pouring into Citrus County.
I would like to add that there's a public perception with the Suncoast as well. That the money coming in, if somebody's looking at it on a county-by-county basis, When you add all of those projects, plus the investment in the Suncoast, there's a lot of money coming into Citrus County right now. Somebody's thinking about that.
Anyone else? Thanks, Jeff. You have anything else?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Our pleasure.
H2?
I'm sorry. I'm still thinking roads. H2, Public Hearing Medicaid Assessment Program.
H2, street vacation?
I'm sorry. I am looking at 125. All right, street vacation. Schroeder, SB-2025-00002.
Mr. Schroeder, you are here. If you want to make a presentation, you're welcome to.
I have nothing really to present on this.
Can you please come forward? State your name for the record, please, and your address.
My name is Mark Schroeder. I live at 6594 North Iris Drive in Hernando. I'm here for it's actually SM Industries is the name of the company that the street vacate is for. The streets in this particular subdivision, US 19 3rd edition, have been periodically vacated along the way. Matter of fact, this particular street was vacated on the other side of US 19. So we're just looking to acquire additional property, and this also extends property to the neighbor to the north.
All right, thank you. Joanna?
All right, this is a request to vacate a portion of West Des Moines Lane. This is in the US Highway 19 number 3 edition. It is a very old plat in our public records, Plat Book 2. As Mr. Schroeder specified, it is vacated on the east side of 19 where there is development there, and this is on the west side. It certainly is not visible. Now, I deleted my slide quickly there because I do have Suncoast pools, which is not what this is. This is actually Sugar Mill Woods pools, and I apologize for that. This actually shows you that area of vacation, the fence line, and to the east, 40 feet. You would never know a street is here. This is the property appraiser's aerial. You can see what's happened here. There's a few structures. They're actually not in the right-of-way. The property appraiser's aerials are always a little bit skewed from Earth in reality, but the GIS map and the applicant survey shows that those buildings are about 7 feet from the property line, so they do need this straight vacation to get those buildings to remain. These are some of the other buildings on the side, and you can see there's some pods and things that are actually showing up on that aerial. Again, this is a good picture of the site. You would never know a street is here. They do have releases from all public utilities, and county staff has recommended approval. Since I wrote the staff report, the applicant is working very hard to try to remedy the code enforcement actions here for some of those construction items. We've met with them and worked out many of the permits, but they do need this vacate because of that 7-foot setback. Hopefully that can be approved for them and they can proceed forward with permitting those as well.
Very good. At this time, we'll open it up to the public. Would anyone? That was just a presentation. On the subject matter, the street vacation, would anybody like to speak? Seeing none. Board?
Madam Chair, based on competent and substantial evidence, I'll make a motion that we approve street vacation SV-2025-00002.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Barrick. If there's no further board comment, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, now we're on to the public hearing Medicaid assessment program. Welcome.
Thank you, Honorable Commissioner. I don't have that many acronyms, as we've heard before today. I only have two. One is the LPPF, that's the Local Provider Participation Fund. This commission was a trailblazer 4 years ago when they established that.
Your name?
Oh, my bad. Suhail Charbra. I represent the hospitals that are in this county. So this commission established that ordinance, and that fund was created. What happens is there's a match mechanism that I'll explain. Unlike the Californias and the New Yorks, Florida does not provide general revenue for Medicaid funding. What happens in Florida instead is these hospitals have to front their own dollars, which they then send to the county in the fund that is sent to ACA, and ACA applies federal matching funds. That's how these hospitals continue to serve the Medicaid population in your county. So what this resolution today is asking this Honorable Commission to impose that rate so that that process can be set into motion, whereby we can then access those funds for these hospitals so that the indigent, those who are in Medicaid, Medicare, can continue to have this coverage. And that's pretty much it.
Board members, you have any questions for the applicant?
Yeah, how often do we have to, if we do not approve this, how often would we have to approve? Is it a yearly approval, a 2-year approval?
Through the Honorable Chair. It's based on the ordinance, it's an annual assessment, so it
Okay.
has to be done every year.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to note, the hospitals are here waving in support of that, if you want to hear from them. And also, personally, I would love to thank your county staff. They've been incredible in terms of how quickly they've responded to us and how they allowed us to be here urgently. So thank you so much.
Thank you. At this time, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone wishing to address the board, please come forward. State your name and your address for the record, please.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Steve Harris. I'm the Senior Vice President for Payer and Government Affairs at Tampa General, and I'm representing TGH Crystal River, of course, today. I just had some very brief comments. I just wanted in support of this program. Of course, Crystal River is proud to be a partner with the Board of County Commissioners on this DPP program, the Directed Payment Program. We tend to call it DPP for short. It's a program which helps ensure access to primary and specialty services for the most vulnerable residents in Citrus County. Really, the feature that we like as TGH the most about this program, as you just heard, is it costs the taxpayers of Citrus County nothing. It's a special assessment to the providers, and that pays for the state share. So again, no taxpaying citizens of Citrus County are impacted. We are at a crossroads today with the kind of an alignment of the federal and the state and the county actions to preserve the critical access funding and support of these indigent care services provided not only by TGH Crystal River, but any of the current or future hospitals in Citrus County that would be impacted by this. Without the time-sensitive action by today's Board of County Commissioner vote, hospitals stand to lose an opportunity to preserve the state-authorized federal matching dollars in support of the safety net healthcare services. Unfortunately, this isn't a one-year issue, but it has the potential to limit these valuable assessment dollars indefinitely if this action is not taken. I'm pleased to report that over 25 other local government jurisdictions around the state will adopt similar measures on or before July 4th. So let me just wrap that up by saying we value our partnership with the board, and thank you for your attention to this matter today.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. Lisa Numi, I'm the CEO of HCA Florida Hospital, and my address is 4132 Southern Valley Loop. I just wanted to come to the board today and thank you for your consideration of this. Let you know how much I do appreciate the board's support of healthcare in the community. We're very pleased and honored to be able to provide that to our community, and I appreciate your consideration of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close open to the public.
Madam Chair, motion to approve H3, B, and C.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Next on our agenda is a public hearing ordinance prohibiting lobbying by former county commissioners. Commissioner-
Yes, Madam Chair, I am going to read the ordinance into the record. We did note that we have a slight typo in the preamble to the ordinance, so I'm going to read it as we would like you to approve it. So at the conclusion of this hearing, you're going to be asked to consider an ordinance of Citrus County, Florida, prohibiting lobbying by former county commissioners, adding Chapter 2, Article 3, Section 2-68, entitled Prohibition Against Lobbying by Former County Commissioners, providing for severability, providing for inclusion into the code, providing for modifications that may arise from consideration at public hearing, providing for repeal of inconsistent provisions, and providing for an effective date. We need to just open it up for public hearing.
All right, at this time, we'll open it up. Anyone in the public wishing to address the board, please come forward. Please state your name and your address for the record.
Hello, Anthony Ayo, Beverly Hills, Florida. I'm concerned about this ordinance. It doesn't have a time limit. So basically, you're saying that no commissioner ever can lobby. Is this true? Okay, I think we should reevaluate that because that kind of limits their ability for employment. You know what I'm saying? It's like I understand a 2-year, I think there's some places there are 2-year limits and like that imposed, but I don't think this is kind of a little bit too strict on anybody's future employment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lynn, I thought this was going to follow the state law.
It is, it's 6 years, and it's only them lobbying their former board. So someone, could lobby other entities, just not their former boards.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Davis.
I was going to ask that because as this is written, this could be interpreted to be any county commissioner from, I don't know, Virginia or elsewhere in the state of Florida, is it not? By former county commissioners. So shouldn't it say from former Citrus County commissioners?
It references the Florida Constitution, so it's only Florida County Commissioners.
Okay, but be that as it may, that also means that, and I just wanted to discuss it. I'm not saying that it has to be that, but are we intending to block former Citrus County commissioners or former county commissioners in the state of Florida?
The way that the Constitution reads, it's former county commissioners can't lobby their county.
Okay.
For 6
All right,
years.
just wanted to make sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing none. Board?
Madam Chair, motion to approve H4 as read by County Attorney Denise Lynn.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any further discussion by the board? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next on our agenda is a public hearing, lobbyist registration ordinance.
Yes, Madam Chair, at the conclusion of this public hearing, you're going to be asked to consider an ordinance of Citrus County, Florida, adding Chapter 2, Article 8, entitled Registration of Lobbyists, providing for severability, providing for modification that may arise from consideration at public hearing, providing for scrivener's errors, providing for codification, and providing for an effective date. And as you begin your public hearing, I would just note that on page 4 of 7, 2-218A2, we do need to have a date that you intend to commence the reporting of expenditures. That we left that blank for your discussion.
All right, at this time, we'll open this up to the public. Is there anyone wishing to address this topic to the board? Seeing none. Ms. Lynn, is there a recommendation on number 2?
I don't know if our governmental affairs director has anything to add, or, I mean, maybe August 1st. He's going to be in charge of administering this ordinance. That's why I asked if he had any recommendation. I'm not really seeing any, but maybe August 1st, or, there you go.
I'll speak from here.
No, oh, no, you have to go over there.
You have to state your name.
James Toy, Intergovernmental Affairs Director, or Manager, not there quite yet. August 1st would be my recommendation. I concur with Madam Attorney.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
All right,
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Barrick?
Okay, July 1st is like a week away. August 1st is like 5 weeks away. Is it gonna take 5 weeks to get it actually into operation, or would say July 15th be a better date?
It is at your discretion, and the ordinance will be effective today if you pass it. This is just for the date for which the lobbyists are going to begin reporting their expenditures. So that would just give them some time to, get their affairs in order, get their software together, get their reporting documents. They have to first apply. There's an application that's in here. The intergovernmental affairs manager will have to approve that. There's some paperwork that has to be taken care of. So I think August 1st is reasonable to give everybody a chance to get their ducks in a row.
There'll actually be some IT work probably on our website. There'll be a process. There's a little bit of work behind the scenes.
Okay.
I'm sure you all noticed there's some fillable forms that are included. So they'll have, maybe they'll want to integrate those into their software. I think it's reasonable.
Very good.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Finnegan?
motion to approve H5 as read by County Attorney Denise Lynn.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Barrick, and that is to include the
August 1st date.
August 1st date.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any further board comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
motion to approve E1, A through K.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Finnegan for E1, A through
Okay.
K. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. All right, we've already done E2 and 3, so we're on to E4.
Motion to approve E4.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. E5.
Motion to approve E5.
Second.
A and B.
A and
A
B.
and B.
We have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. E6.
Motion to approve E6.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Finnegan. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. E7.
Motion to approve E7.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. E8.
Motion to approve E8?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E9, A, B, and C.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E10, A, and B.
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis
Second.
and a second by Commissioner Barrick.
A and B.
Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor?
Madam Chair, I got a question
Oh,
for you.
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Says A and B.
The SAFER grant for these 13 firefighters, are these in addition to the funding that by consensus we've agreed to? Or is this hopefully going to,
Chief Stevens, would you like to come forward?
you know, if we get this, does that pay for that third person per truck for the next 3 years, or?
So the way the SAFER grant works is we're able to apply for it as long as they're not in our current budget. So we'll apply for it, they're not in our current budget, and then if we're awarded that grant, then we'll use that funding to move forward to help with capital items versus paying for those positions. So these aren't an additional 13 to the 13 that we're seeking.
So by consensus, the board agreed to, was it $46 extra? Just off the top of my head. So if you're awarded this SAFER grant, then you wouldn't need that entire $46. We could go to whatever the difference was to get the, what was it, the trucks on a 15-year.
Well, moving into the future, you'd need that money. So the grant covers 3 years. The first 2 years are 75%, and then year 3 is only 35%. So we'll need that funding in the budget.
Okay. But we could stagger that, that MSBU number, right? I mean, I know you'd rather have it up front, but I'm just trying to keep, from raising that, to just what we need right now. And if we can get that third man to a truck or third person to a truck with this SAFER grant, then we only need 25% of that money the first, 2 years? And then the additional the third year?
However, this is a competitive grant, so we don't even know if we'll get it when it comes to budget yet or not.
Sure,
It's going to be a hard spot to be in.
All right, thank you, Chief.
Yes.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Finnegan.
Commissioner Kennard, we must have been on the same page. I had the same questions. When do we vote on the finalization of that MSBU? Is it at the final budget hearing? Do we have a date?
We'll let Barb come up and.
Sorry, Barb. Well, as you're coming up, because according to the backup information, Chief, that we should know about this grant by August.
Hi, Barbara Luckham. We will have it presented or included in the July with a higher millage rate. In the final one in September is where we could reduce it.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. So I know I acquiesced on option 2 for board consensus, but I still thought option 1. So I think it, with this grant, if we do the higher one, I think by the time we're at our final budget hearing, if we get the SAFER grant, understood that we'll need the money in years. I had mentioned that at our workshop for this, phase it in. If we go with the option 1, it's a slight increase to the taxpayers, and then maybe hold that for a year and then year 3, start implementing another bump up to support our firefighters and the fire department. But remember, even with option 1 with no grant, that was still the extra 13 people on a truck, plus there would still be money for the things that the fire department need, although no money for buildings at that point. But I think with option 1, I think it would spill over to almost everything that the chief's asking for. I do, like I said before, Chief, I want to give you everything that you need. I think the SAFER grant would be an excellent tool for the taxpayers to get there incrementally. So I wish us all the best of luck getting it.
Mr. Howard, may I ask the chief to come back?
Yes.
Chief, can you tell us about your current staffing situation? Yeah, I was at an event recently and somebody that had worked for you was telling me that I guess you're very short right now?
We're short on the EMS side. So from time to time, obviously, we don't have our full 10 trucks up for 24 hours because we were mandatory in personnel. So to cut back on that, we looked at our call volume and have cut back during the non-peak hours when we can, so we don't have to mandatory staff. However, we currently have quite a few employees in the onboarding process right now that will bring those numbers back up.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Barrett, did you have something?
Yeah, this is to apply for the grant. There's no guarantee he's gonna get the grant. The apportionment that you want for the MSBU or TU, whatever you wanna call it, we can always go down when it comes to September and we do the finalization of the budget. So if he is lucky enough to get this grant, and we, get that, we can always go down in September, but we need to be able to apply for this. That's why it's so important for us to say, yeah, at this point, yeah, apply for the grant.
Is that it? All right, thank you. So I do have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any public input on this issue? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. E11.
Motion to approve E11.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Davis.
Chair, is that A and B?
Yes.
Davis? Davis?
Yes.
Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. E12.
Motion to approve E12.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Barrick. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Motion to approve E13.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. E14. This is regarding a discussion and vote on the future of the Inverness FBO lease with Wright Rudder Aviation. I have Carl standing in front of us.
Hello, Chair, Commissioners. Carlton Hall, Public Works Director. We're coming for you today to talk a little bit about the Inverness Airport and the current status of the FBO lease. I want to take you back a little bit to April of 2024 when we had a workshop and we had a consultant come in and kind of give us a financial analysis of the airports. A lot of things were identified during that analysis. Not only that the airports have a great benefit to the county, but also the fact that we're looking to increase the activity at the airports. And just the couple of projects that you approved today Crystal River Airport has a fuel farm expansion project that we're getting ready to start on. We also have the extension of the runway there at Crystal River. The business park in Inverness is a big project that we've completed phase 1, about to extend the agreement for phase 2, and many other things that are happening. So during the presentation, we talked a lot about how the airports receive funding. A lot of grants come through, a lot of Department of Commerce money comes through the airport to help us to accomplish these things. In addition, during that financial analysis, we really looked at the fact that the airports are an asset to the county. So there are county funds, general funds, that go into the airports, both airports. So in the analysis that was presented, the decision was made to hire an aviation attorney to kind of help the county look at the leases that we currently have, redo those leases at the benefit of the county that they haven't been touched in many, many years. So the aviation attorney that was hired, directed by County Attorney Ms. Lynn, was Chris Wilson. So Chris Wilson has been working with us over the past year to kind of go through these leases. We've started with the ground leases. We currently have a new ground lease that was presented to the board. The hangar leases, as far as T-hangars as well as box hangars, were presented to the board. And we're moving right on into looking at some of the FBO leases that we currently have. It was during this time that a few issues came up with Wright Rudder Aviation, who is our current FBO at the Inverness Airport. A few of those issues we had a meeting last Monday to discuss. Some of the problems that were brought up on the leases that current FBO handles and maintains, as we were reviewing those leases, we found a few issues. During that discussion on Monday, I think we came to an understanding that those issues can be handled without a problem. There's a lot of changes that are going to have to be made, but we can work through those. The one thing that we did identify, and you should have in your backup, is the certification for 141, which is a flight school certification. In his lease, that is a required item out of 21 items. It's brought to our attention that he lost that certification. So during that meeting that we had last Monday, it was brought up and asked what his thoughts for the future were, what his plans were for that certification. And basically he mentioned that he didn't need it. Didn't have a student that required it. But to give you a little idea of what that certification looks like, I'm a contractor. So I have an option of having a registered license, which means I can work for Citrus County, or having a state license, which means I could work for the entire state. So really the 141 certification is a higher certification for flight school. It allows to bring in students from outside of the country. It's a very robust program. It ramps up the timeline, and it allows many more students the opportunity to learn from someone who holds that certification. So during that discussion we had last Monday, it was decided that they didn't want to have that certification. So at this point, we're going to have to make a decision. Since there was requirements of the lease that weren't met, the lease was terminated as per the lease documents. So now we need to make a decision. Do we want to move forward with that termination, or do we want to look at amending the current lease that we have with the FBO, Wright Rudder? Because of the fact he's not meeting those minimum requirements, a change in some way is going to have to be made to that lease. So really that's what we're coming here today to talk to you a little bit about. What's the board's decision? What is your idea on the future of this lease? Do we move forward with termination, or do we look at trying to amend this in some way to lessen the requirements? And when you make that decision, think about trying to move these airports forward in the activity at these airports. This is actually going to be going in the wrong direction. It's going to be going backwards. So we leave that up to the board today.
Madam Chair?
You guys want to draw straws?
Commissioner Kennard, you go
Commissioner
first, but I
Kennard.
just wanted to make the offer to the board. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole, but I have a lot of knowledge on Part 141 if anyone needs more clarification. Not bad, but there's a lot more to it.
Commissioner Kennard?
I guess my question is, well, a comment. Going into it, I was fine with using the other certification and not requiring the 141. But then your last statement suggesting that by not having that 141 certification, that decreases activity at the airport. Is that just an opinion, or is there some real data to back up that decreases the activity? And my second comment on this is, with 2 airports in the county and one of them offering this 141 certification, is it absolutely necessary that both of them offer the 141 certification?
Well, in the past, the county thought so. It was required at both FBO leases for a 141 certification. I think in the backup that you received, there's a graph there that shows a little bit about the flight activity at the airport. And you'll notice during a certain portion of his lease, the activity drastically increased in his flights, as well as that training of other pilots. And in the last, you would say maybe the last year, you can see from that graph where those flights or that activity at the airport has drastically decreased. Now keep in mind, a lot of the activity at airports have a lot to do with how the FAA looks at the airport and the funding that the county receives based on that activity. So I believe it's very important.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Davis.
There is a lot of prestige to having a Part 141 flight school at what is perhaps in the future going to be our stronger airport. You know, Crystal River has been by far the stronger airport for decades, although it was a dirt strip when we first moved here. So it is very difficult to get a Part 141. Despite some of the, you know, I went down trying to figure out where the $100,000 to get a Part 141 comment came from. It is free to obtain from the FAA. There may be personnel costs involved in doing all the paperwork and so forth, but there's certainly not a cost to getting a Part 141 unless one, and this was a little, I found a little disturbing because a Part 141 means that you have to get a 90% pass rate for at least 10, you have to have at least 10 students enrolled in any particular program. That can be ground school, just ground school. It can be just private pilot. It can be just instrument, you know, and so on and so forth. So for example, Crystal River holds private, instrument, and commercial, Part 141s. To maintain all of those, they have to have 10 students for each of those ratings minimum. And no matter how many students they have to have an 80% pass rate. That's to keep it. To get it, they have to have a 90% pass rate. And that's not knowing the skills or the aptitude of anybody who walks in the door. So it is nothing to sneeze at. What I found out in my research for this is that one can actually purchase a Part 141 from another school. If they're going out of business, retiring, you know, whatever, you can actually purchase it. That's how the person who bought my parents' flight school actually is the holder of a Part 141, which I don't have a problem with because that's the flight school. Like all those procedures were in place, but literally you could buy a Part 141 certificate from 5 counties away and use it in Inverness. So maybe that's where the 100,000 figure came from. That's, I was trying really hard to figure that out. I'm sure we can't do back and forth, so I'm sure Mr. Chan will address that. So it is very prestigious, and people, you know, the government looks at you very differently when you have a Part 141. And given that this is the aviation capital of the world, aviation training capital of the world, we can absolutely support 2 different flight schools in Citrus County. And a rising tide raises all ships. And for the record, Mr. Chen from Crystal Air Group has 0 interest in bidding this, just so y'all know. So.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Are we just talking about the flight school part of this, or do you have any, Carl, do you have any more information?
So we're talking about the lease itself. As per the lease documents, if there's a discrepancy or a service that's required that's not being provided, and in this instance, it's the 141 flight school certificate. The county wasn't notified by Mr. Chan that this was leaving or he was forfeiting it or whatever happened to that certificate. We were just notified after the fact that he no longer had it. And when that was brought to his attention, as per the lease, he had 30 days to correct that deficiency. and no such correction came.
Oh,
Go ahead.
two other points. Part 61 is the other, when we say part, it's federal aviation regulations and they go by parts, right? So Part 61 goes for more, let's just say laid back flight instruction. Part 141 is much more regimented, and that's where the 80% pass rate comes in. If you have like 1 or 2 airplanes and you're a flight instructor, you would be operating under Part 61. Part 141 is a professional flight school. So if you are, and I went deep down a Reddit thread, essentially people giving opinions, which made sense to me, that if you are good at self-study and you want a more laid-back sort of environment, Part 61, and you don't intend to go for a professional career in flying, Part 61 is fine. Again, we are the aviation training capital of the world. A local Part 141 flight school can, and Embry-Riddle will be the first one to say this, a local Part 141 flight school can get you so much further down the track for a fraction of the dollars of a 4-year university. So it's a huge business opportunity to have a Part 141 flight school for the county, right? And to have 2 is fantastic. So reason being is that the employers, aviation employers, airlines and so forth, and corporate look at a Part 141 graduate completely different than a Part 61 graduate. Furthermore, because it's such a regimented, syllabus-driven program, the FAA actually allows you to get your certificates with less hours, which saves money through a Part 141 versus the 61. And I think I'm done nerding out over Part 141, but if I have anything else, I'll pop up.
And just for some backup, it's, when I read through the RFQ when it was originally requested, I mean, that was really very much what Wright Rudder was talking about. I mean, they were emphasizing the fact that they had the 141. But I know that maintenance is also required of the lease. Is that what are the other terms of the lease? Are they being met?
Well, there's 21 items that are required items, and maintenance for so many hours a day, so many days a week is part of that. Actually having someone at the airport for 10 hours a day, 7 days a week is part of that. There's a whole stipulation of required actions for the fuel farm. A lot of the other regulations that they handle on a day-to-day basis for us are outlined in that lease document.
And are those being met?
Currently, they are. I did notice just in the last few days, going through some background information, when you go on Wright Rudder's website, it doesn't mention that they're open 10 hours a day. It kind of mentions a 9 to 5, but it's possible that they have staff there for 10 hours a day.
During the course of this, I received an email from someone that had, I don't know, bid on a package or something, and they were going to take, I guess, it was some kind of glider lessons, but the issue was that they could never get anybody to answer the phone. Nobody was there. So, I mean, I've heard bits and pieces along the way, so I'm not sure exactly what that's going on. And then Andy mentioned earlier something about we have never approved leases. I'm not sure what that's about.
Well, I know that some of the leases have gone through our risk management department, but previous aviation staff really looked at it as Andy's business with those hangars that he controlled or had control of in his lease. But now that we're really looking at these airports, we have completely separated the finances between both the Crystal River and the Inverness Airport. We're looking at the revenues versus the expenses, trying to get a feel for what we need to do in the future to make the airports more of a self-earner instead of using county tax dollars. So in the midst of going through all of that, that's when we started asking for these leases that he has control of, just to make sure there were no discrepancies with those leases. Like I mentioned, there were there were several discrepancies. They did respond with certain things that they were going to try to repair or fix. We didn't get to the finish line with that before the 30 days ended, but in our conversation last Monday, we were looking at making some arrangements to have a process where when we found an issue, that there was a step to go through that for correction. Some of the leases that we were able to review showed an extension date past the date that Wright Rudder has as FBO for the Inverness Airport. So that was one of the issues, that his leases can't extend past his own lease with the county.
And can he sublease?
He cannot sublease the property that he has in control of as the FBO, but he has certain properties that have hangars on them at his control.
Carl, I've got, there was a concern about fueling out there, fueling the medevac helicopter or whoever that is. Is that something that we've gotten ironed out, or is that something that's a violation of FAA, or are we getting sideways with FAA by him doing what he's doing out there? I have since heard that would be concerning to me if I were a pilot and had a plane out there, that I guess a number of airboaters in the county get their aviation fuel out there and actually have the gate code to go and do that. And that was a concern to folks out there. Is that having others with that gate code, is that something that's getting us could get us sideways?
It's possible. Part of the lease documents, Wright Rudder has control of the security of the airport. They are the operator of the airport. So it is in their best interest to control who has codes, and the entrance and exits of that airport is supposed to be monitored and controlled by them. The one lease that you're describing with the helicopter flight medevac, there was some fuel right exclusivities written into the lease that were a violation that were brought to their attention. When we asked for status on that lease and changes to that lease, the only thing we received back was a blank lease with some changes. So the actual lease that was in current with that bay flight didn't get fixed as of yet.
Commissioner Finnegan.
So I don't know where this is going, but someone said if we have two with the Part 141, thank you, by the way, that, for those of us not in aviation, that's, you don't get the full picture. I don't know how we can expect it of one and not of the other. So if they could just drop it at any time, what if the existing person that holds that in Crystal River decides to get rid of it? And I think Commissioner Davis made a very good case of why that's good for the county. And you did too, Mr. Hall, because we don't want to go backwards. I made mention of that this morning. We're putting all this money into the airport. We obviously want to move it forward. As far as the leases board, I'm not sure. I read everything that you read. My issue was a year ago, 2 years ago, whenever it was, with safety and security. To me, breaking the lease was, as you had mentioned, with the gate codes, but also giving access to just Airbnb property. I'm not over that yet, because that tells me something about the person that's running our airport. When you're advertising secure property and there's no even potable water and people could get sick for a few bucks, that concerns me gravely, especially in the state of affairs, even currently right now within our country. If we don't have tight security at our airport, that is certainly a great risk. So for me, the security part alone, even back then, that's, I was on that side of shortening that agreement, and for just that reason, my concerns about security. After listening to Commissioner Davis, I also share some concerns about us moving backwards, as you put it. So
we feel the same way. One of the requests of the items of that analysis, financial analysis, was additional staff to help the county manage and maintain these both airports. And those weren't voted on and approved, but we have asked for additional staff in the upcoming budget. It's part of the budget request for aviation, so you'll see that as you work through your budgets.
Madam Chair?
Commissioner Davis?
Thank you. Commissioner Finnegan, that's also on my list. Everybody needs to remember that's a 5,000-foot runway, which puts it into TSA level security. When Crystal River gets to 5,000, they will also be at TSA level security, which that doesn't mean that we have, magnetometers and things and conveyor belts to put your luggage through. It's not that, but the fence line must remain secure, and we need to be very careful about those things. There was also the fundraiser where the contract says that any events need to have FAA and Citrus County permission. We didn't know about that event, from what I understand, and therefore also risk management didn't get it to take a look at it, make sure the insurance was correct. And from what I understand, Citrus County taxpayers ended up paying for all the damage when someone got drunk and ran around in their car and tore down a fence and I think some lights on our property. So to your point, poor judgment. And there was also another really nationally known, I don't know if you know this, but a nationally very well recognized crop dusting school that used to share the big hangar with Wright Rudder, and they were run off. So I believe they're in Williston now, correct, Mr. Howard? I think so.
Yeah, I don't have any knowledge of that.
Yeah. Oh, is she? Awesome. And that's all I got. It's plenty, though.
Commissioner Barrick?
Okay, I'm looking at this as we're gonna possibly discontinue his lease because of things he's done that he didn't follow his lease. To me, it's sort of cut and dry, okay? As a former Citrus Springs president with use of the building, it was a county building. I had to make sure when we had an event that I got in touch with risk management and sent them all the proper insurances. And they checked it before we could actually have an event and say, yeah, you can do this. Okay, as a healthcare person with food, in the food industry, the same thing. We would have bingo, I would do the cooking. I had a certification. If my certification wasn't there, we couldn't have it. So if certain things were explained to him at the beginning of his contract, and he has taken it upon himself to let them lapse, okay, for one reason or another. It's not our fault that he let them lapse, but it is our responsibility to make sure that those people working for us and doing things for us in our facilities are following proper procedures at all time. So, I don't see anything wrong with what you're doing, except I would have liked to have seen a little bit more time for him to, to get back to you, or for you to, do maybe one or two more times to, hey, this is what we need now. And big red letters or whatever, call him, telephone him, email him, whatever, so that if he had, if he could fix it, he could fix it. But that's probably, the best I can say. That's where I stand at this point.
Carl, didn't the first letter go out in December?
We did, yes.
But there was no response.
Well, there's been communication going on since December.
And
I
it was
think,
a one-way.
I think his attorney didn't reply until March. Is that correct?
I believe so, yeah. I could go back
It was
through.
it was a one-way thing, and that's a big problem.
Can I ask a question?
Commissioner Pinto?
May I ask you, in the backup information we saw back towards the beginning, and there were several partners in this. It looked like a married couple, another gentleman, and then Andy. Are any of those other people involved anymore?
There were two different entities on the original RFQ. Eagle Vista was one in addition to Wright Rudder. And at the time, they, I guess, were partnered. And at some point, that partnership disbanded or fell apart.
That's the crop dusting school that I referenced.
Because what I noticed was it looked like that couple had the good ratings as far as business acumen, credit, everything. It was horrible, but I guess because it was a partnership, it looked like the county let that go. So now it looked like the business-minded people that understood all went away. And then we can see what kind of financial business decisions have happened, I'm guessing, since that. That's just me looking at backup information that was new to me. So I just didn't know where those people went and why. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Ms. Lynn?
Yes. Just two items I'd like to bring to your attention as you're discussing this. First, the document that we're looking at, I know we're all referring to it as a lease, and I think that many of us have our common understandings of the word lease, but this is more than just a lease. It's not just leasing like a tea hanger or a box hanger. It's actually a lease and operating agreement. So within that lease, there are many provisions that talk about the types of services that are supposed to be provided, the hours of operation. So it's much more than just leasing the big hangar to the company. So please consider that in your deliberations, that it's not just a lease, but it's also, he is providing a service to the county. It's a service agreement in addition to the lease. And then also, Commissioner Finnegan, to your questions, I did notice those same things in the RFQ, but the actual document is between Citrus County and Wright Rudder Aviation. So that other entity or those other individuals that you referenced, their names actually didn't make it into the agreement. I don't know why, but that's the way the agreement is written. So.
Hence, a year ago in May, when we had the whole presentation on the airports, and I think there was a list of 20 items. We approved many, which one was breaking out financials, one was hiring an FAA attorney because things seem to be sort of all over the place, and to get some uniformity and some consistency. I was shocked when I read through the RFQ and saw Eagle Vista, right? Eagle Vista referenced in so much, but yet their name wasn't part of the agreement. So again, I think we've learned a lot over the last couple of years, going through the financial analysis, identifying how much money can really be made at these airports, and they are an asset of the taxpayers, and we have an obligation to the taxpayers to do the best job for them. All right, Board, would you like to open this up to the public? Do you have more comments or questions for Carl?
You would need a motion before you open it up, and I mean, it sounds from your discussion that I'm just kind of trying to take it all in, but it sounds like you're leaning towards ratifying the actions taken by staff and your aviation attorney in sending the termination letter, and standing by that termination, if that's what you're doing.
Yes. Did you want to make the motion? I'll make the motion. Commissioner Bays makes the motion to ratify whatever she said.
Determination.
Ratify the actions of your staff and your FAA attorney in sending the termination letter and standing by that termination with the deadlines that were included in that termination letter.
Thank you, Counselor.
Second.
I have a second by Commissioner Barrick. So at this time, we'll open it up to the public.
Does he get 3 or 5? 5. Okay.
Andy Chan speaking on behalf of Wright Rudder Aviation. We did disappointed in the motion, obviously. I think there were some misrepresentations by staff just now. First off, when we were invited by the county, and we won the RFQ, we were invited to contract negotiations. And those were in good faith, and the people in the room were Quincy Weilepek, Walt, his boss at the time, and the Economic Development Director, I currently forget his name. The lease that was presented to us was a mirror of Crystal River's lease, and you'll notice that our lease is not a mirror of Crystal River's lease. There are some significant changes. During that meeting, we presented that we were primarily a Part 61 school, and we would go forth with the 141. And we were very clear that we said we wanted to have the 141, try it out, and see if there's a reason to have that, economically speaking, or if any of the members of the community would like to take part in that. And because of that, the lease was modified to allow us to have the 141 and try it out. And that's why our lease says we were required to obtain it but not maintain it, which is why we hold that we are not in violation of the lease. What we presented to the county at that time and what the county accepted at that time with the 3 people in the room who negotiated the lease were that Wright Rudder could have the 141, try it, and see if it worked. And we did that. We earned our 141 certificate. We held out to the public, and we did see business grow. Now, out of that, 0 people, we had 0 students, not a single student wanted to take part in 141. Every single student we've had throughout our 7 years of being at the Inverness Airport was under Part 61. It does cost around $100,000 a year to maintain the certificate. We don't have to pay the FAA that, but it costs consulting costs, software programs we have to buy. Just as maintaining a county doesn't cost anything, but you have to have staff, you have to have programs in place. So it's an expensive certificate. So in our mind, we were just doing what we had agreed to. I did speak at the Aviation Advisory Board several times to inform that the 141 certificate was going to, we were going to allow that to lapse because there was no use for it. And so we didn't even see a concern with that. But because that was what was presented to us by the county representatives at that point in time in which we signed the lease. And our lease says obtain, not maintain. I appreciate that Carl admitted that previously we didn't have to get approval for the leases because previous county staff, Quincy and Walt, said that we didn't have to get approval for the leases. I appreciate that honesty. There was a change in the lease, in the way the county wants to do business. We said, fine, please approve the lease. We sent the draft lease of the AirLife lease for approval before we executed that with our tenants because obviously we didn't want to sign something if it wasn't going to be approved, and we have not heard back from the county on if that template of a lease would be approved. If it's approved, we'll go and get it re-signed. Talking about cost of earning a certificate, we are the lowest cost provider of flight training in the world, period. I've presented our facts on that. We did a whole presentation previously, but that is true. So we did correct the lease. Let's see, fueling. I disagree that we cannot enter as a private company with another private company to say that there's exclusivity. It is true that the county, because of grant assurances, cannot guarantee exclusivity to a party, but we're not the county. So all we did with AirLife was say, hey, buy fuel from us, you get a discount on the fuel, and they're happy to enter in that agreement. Nevertheless, we made a change to that lease, and we have not heard back. As far as the Blessings Ball goes, we did communicate that to Todd. You can look that up on the record in the Aviation Advisory Board prior to the Blessings Ball. He did not mention anything, nor did he bring that to risk management's attention. And previously, it wasn't, the hangar had been used for many, many times, and it was up to Todd or Quincy at the time to go to risk management. Blessings did a good job of hiring Citrus County Sheriff's deputies to make sure that no one left the facility or no one would be drunk, except that the sheriff allowed somebody to leave drunk. They do have insurance, and I told Todd that at the time, but the county chose not to seek damages from the sheriff's office, even though they were hired specifically to prevent that incident. So there would be an opportunity to gain those funds back, but there wasn't the political motivation to do so for whatever reason. In my mind, we are following, and I can prove it, and I've asked for meetings. All right, well, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close open to the public.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner Kennard.
I guess before, I can kind of see the writing on the wall here, but before the board votes on this, I guess I would put out there that it sounds to me like the majority of the issues are things that we can overcome. And hopefully get everybody back on the same page. Would this board have an appetite for making it crystal clear in the lease that a 141 flight school must be obtained and maintained out at the Inverness Airport?
Commissioner Kennard, I guess at this point, I would like to ratify the termination of this lease if they want to go back and renegotiate and get the 141, but also clean up some other things so that we have some specifics. I think right now, as I understand it, his contract does not require him to provide financials. I would like to change that. I'd like to see financials, see what type of business we're running. I think these are assets of the taxpayers, and I think we have an obligation to the taxpayers to run them and have a stewardship of financial responsibility. I can tell you, I did some homework. I'm concerned. I think that there's other legal issues that are going on. As far as the 141, I mean, if you're going to sign or an agreement and say it's there, it's like you buying a car. You know that you're supposed to have insurance. I mean, you don't get insurance and then go drop it. And I like Andy. I mean, we've gone to Tallahassee together. We've worked on getting more funding for the airport. But somewhere the relationship went down a slippery slope. When we decided not to do a 50-year lease, we were in the middle of trying to do a study, and I think Diane and I think you maybe said 1 year, I might have said 2, I'm not sure. My whole position was I wanted to continue the relationship. I wanted to have that type of relationship, but I felt like if we could get the study done and we could have a partnership where we both knew where we stood, but it has become very adversarial. And that's my concern. I feel like at this point, we hired an attorney exactly for these purposes, and he's got us on the right track. We're going down the right road. If we want to go back to the table and negotiate with Andy, that's one thing. But I think the prudent course of action today is to ratify what the attorney put in front of us. And if we want to go back and renegotiate and find a path forward, great. But I just think there's a lot of tightening up in this.
Well, it's going to go out to RFQ. He's welcome to reapply.
Right. All right, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Is there any further comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1. Next on the agenda is Mrs. Hampshire.
E15.
Pardon me?
E15, motion to approve E15.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed
15, yeah.
E15. My apologies. I think I wrote it down. Oh. All right. Release of retainage. So do we have a motion for E15?
Yes, I moved approval.
Okay.
Second?
I have a motion by Commissioner Davis and a second by Commissioner Kennard. Is there any further comment? Or is there any open to the public? Anyone wishing to address the board? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Now you are up.
And before I do my piece, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Landon to talk a little bit about our new building software.
Awesome.
Good afternoon, Board.
Eric with Growth Management. Our new building permitting software went live this morning. It's called Acela. I talked about it a little bit at the last meeting. My hope is that none of you receive any emails or voicemails, and you don't even know that it happened. So that's my wish. Whether or not it happens, I don't know. But that's what I'm shooting for, is that there's no disruption in service. The old system is still online. You can still use the old system if you wish, but if you want to try something new, the new system is also available. That's the way we're moving forward. So it's up to the applicant which process they want to choose to go. Once all the kinks are worked out, you'll be required at some future date to use the new system. If you're interested in it, go to the building department website. All of the options are available for you. You can sign up for an Acela 101 class, which we'll teach in person at Lecanto. You can do a YouTube self-study, which is FAQs that we've done where we share one of our staff members' screens and kind of take you step by step to do the different processes. Or you can do the concierge service where you schedule an appointed time, come in with our staff one-on-one, and we will help you make your first application and show you how it all works. So all those are currently available. If you do get any calls or emails, just forward them to me and we'll sort them out. As you do with any constituent issue that you have, just send them to me. It's very rare that we can't solve a problem in 24 hours. And then planning and code enforcement will be the next step, and that'll happen in the fall. So hopefully we'll keep moving along and everything will go swimmingly. And happy to answer any questions you might have about it.
I just have a couple comments. I just learned this over the weekend, and I think I discussed a little bit with you previously. I think there's some angst between the fire marshal and the building officials about maybe you guys can get together and have a conversation to figure out what's going on. Another thing is, if it's a restaurant, when you're talking about seating capacity, somebody brought up to me, they said there's 3 different standards. One's the building, one's the health department, one's the fire marshal. So again, I think it's just a communication issue, maybe just having a conversation and discussing what each of you look for, or maybe having some kind of an outline from your end, because I think once people apply through you, they don't realize they're going to have to jump through hurdles when it gets to the health department and the fire marshal. So maybe that's something you can help alleviate the confusion.
Sure, and yes, when someone applies for a permit, they apply in my office, they think, okay, well, it's Eric and his team, but it's farmed out all across the county. So like, as you say, the fire department, they review and they have certain criteria they look for. Health department or utilities, depending upon where their water and sewer is coming from. So, but we're happy to help facilitate all those conversations. So.
And then also I've heard that I guess there is a lot of non-permitted construction going on and unlicensed officials that are doing work. And that I think under the building, we could have somebody, it doesn't have to be a code enforcement person. I think you guys can self-initiate and go out and look into those issues.
I'm glad you brought that up. E1H is for a special master specifically for the building department. So if there's any unlicensed work, and you're right, we don't require a complaint. We can go out there and catch them on our own. We appreciate tips if you want to provide tips, but that special master will be specifically for the building department and folks operating without a license or building without a permit.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, go ahead.
Excellent. All right, we just have a few updates for you today. Fiscal year 24-25 road resurfacing and preservation is currently on track. We have about 108 of 135 roads complete, so that's a 79% completion, and we are expecting to see all of those roads completed by August 21st. The impact fee study, we obviously had our first public workshop this morning. The second public workshop is the next step for that, which is scheduled for July 29th. And then finally, we are just working to begin the offshore reef enhancement construction. Just got another item on there today on the agenda for approval. So it's moving along administratively, but we are not actually putting any reef material down yet. And then last but not least, I have an update on the pickleball shade structures as Commissioner Barrick requested at the last meeting. So it requires a little bit of explanation, but I want to go ahead and just give that so you understand why we have a little bit of a delay, and also why I don't have a specific date for you. So what I gave at the last meeting was accurate. We expect those shade structures to be in no later than the beginning of fall, end of summer. I don't have a specific install date yet, and the reason for that is because we're pending the vendor's schedule. So the vendor that we are buying the shade structure from is scheduling about 3 months out for installation right now. But until we put in the purchase order and get the material, which is in motion, and they come back to us with an installation date, I don't want to give you any idea that it might be, all 3 of those months, sooner, later. I did want to let you know that we looked at some other options for that, and the reason that we went ahead and went with this one that had a slightly longer delay, even though it does mean a little bit more sun exposure for our pickleball players over the summer, their structure was a 2-month order, so only removed a month from the actual timeline, and it was about $10,000 more expensive. So we did not want to go with that option.
Well, before you go a little further, I've had complaints, okay? It was supposed to be pickleball/tennis courts, and my tennis players have been after me about where and when is our tennis court gonna appear? Because it's completely gone.
Well, I do love a homework assignment, so I will look into that and let you know what the timeline is for the tennis court component. Anyone have any questions?
Thank you, Veronica.
Thank you.
Mr. Howard.
I ask James to come forward, please.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Commissioners. James Toy, your Intergovernmental Affairs Manager. I would like the record to reflect I did come to the right spot this time, so don't need to correct me this time around.
No yelling from the audience.
You know me, bad habits. Just a brief overview of these recent federal submissions that the county made. Back in late May, Congressman Bill Arrakis' office approached county staff and asked if we'd be interested in submitting projects for consideration in the next iteration of the Surface Transportation Reauthorization Package. That is a multi-year funding and policy package. You see these come out ever so often. Surface transportation is just one. Oftentimes in the news cycle, you hear about the Defense Reauthorization Package. We're certainly not part of those deliberations as much as I'd love to see us get an F-35 or something. One of our airports, Commissioner Davis, I don't think that's quite going to happen yet, but we'll work on that one. But as part of those conversations with staff, we worked with Mr. Eastman and Mr. Hall, and we determined the best 2 projects to submit at this time would be the Halls River Multi-Use Path, as well as the sidewalk on North Independence Highway. North Independence Highway sidewalk, that was due to its ranking on the MPO, and certainly with the multi-use path and the funding already there, as well as it being a 2025 legislative priority, staff felt those were the best ones to put forward. Now, these submissions do not constitute any binding agreement for the county to allocate any kind of local funding for these projects. What the House Transportation Committee is currently working on is an exploratory phase. They're looking across the country at local projects to get a sense of what types of things are out there that might require future funding. These projects we probably won't get an update on until sometime in 2026 when the last iteration, the IIJA, expires, but certainly once we get an update from Congressman Bill Arrakis or the House Transportation Committee, we'll bring that back before the board.
Thank you.
Any questions I can answer?
Board?
One comment, just to put it on your radar, should something like this arise in the future, the second phase of the path connecting Three Sister Springs Trail to the trail at 486. The first phase of that is something that the county is doing, getting that trail to LaGrone Park. The second phase of that was going from LaGrone Park to 486. And DOT made a comment when we first brought that path forward, I don't know how many, 4 years ago, 5 years ago now at this point. The comment was, let the city and county do their part first, get us to LaGrone Park, and then DOT would begin working on their second part. At that time, the estimated cost for that second phase was about $6 million. But they wanted to see the city and county get it to LaGrone Park first. And so that should be on the radar for when these opportunities arise, if the county has any projects that have been discussed by the county commission and that we would like to see if there's an opportunity for federal funding.
I think it's an excellent point. I think this is something that Mr. Howard and I both would have liked to have brought before the board. We actually found out about this at 12:30 on a Monday, and their deadline was close of business that same Wednesday. So certainly that's a great thing. And, as this committee continues to do their work, I'm certain they'll reach back out at some point, and I think it's a great additional item.
Those are two great projects. I didn't mean left something out. I'm just saying this is another trail project that would help to connect other trails, which is, I know, something that those planners look for, and this will be an opportunity for them to do so.
Perfect. Made a note of it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Great news. Commissioner Davis.
Okay, ready to go down the medical examiner rabbit hole with me again? No. Anyone want to trade boards with me? That's okay, I won't abandon my people. So we had our medical examiner board meeting on the 19th last week, and Mr. Howard and Ms. Lynn were both there in attendance with me. So I'm sure they will help chime in if I miss anything. But as a reminder, it is District 5 with the 5 counties, okay, that is normally District 5, District Attorney, et cetera. And then District 24 is Seminole. Seminole solicited Lake County to leave our district essentially because they believed that the 4 remaining counties would vacate the current morgue, meaning those 2 get out of paying for a new morgue, leaving the other 4 counties with a much larger bill, which I think was not very good regional cooperation. So we pushed back and said, well, with only 4 counties, we can stay in the current morgue. So you go build your own facility or acquire your own lease property or whatever. So this all has to be approved by the Medical Examiner Commission of the state of Florida. They will not hear the case again. They've already heard it once. But they will not hear the case again until there is a hammered out agreement of how it will break up if they indeed do allow 24 and 24 can just leave, I believe. But if they allow Lake to depart District 5, what does that look like? And they want to see that before they make their decision. So the attorneys, I believe it's just the 5 counties, or is Seminole involved as well?
Just the 5 counties.
Okay, the 5 county attorneys are going to get together and hammer out that agreement. And I think the next board meeting for Medical Examiner Commission is August.
Yes.
And then the next one is end of October. So most likely it will not be ready to go forward in August, we determined. So theoretically it would go forward into October. The important thing is all 5 sheriffs, including Lakes, support District Attorney Bill Gladson's position that 5 should not break up. They are all in agreement that a new morgue needs to be built for the 5 counties because it's just the right thing to do for staff, for cohesiveness, for efficiency, for everything else. And really great letters from all of them. The public defender is also in favor of keeping District 5 together. So that's where we are. I made a speech at the last meeting on Thursday. I said, we're just politicians that come and go. Yes, there was clapback that the sheriffs are also politicians and so forth, but commissioners tend to come and go a lot faster, and sheriffs tend to be a little bit longer lived. They're more career politicians, as it were. And we need to look at what all those investigators are doing, the staff that's underneath the politicians. There's investigators, and Denise, you can chime in anytime you like, but there's tons of staff that is involved in prosecuting wrongful deaths of any variety, and all of that starts at the morgue with those medical exams, and they have to be there to see the medical exams happening and all those other things. And I'm starting to veer into area that is not my expertise, but we need to let the people who do this incredibly important work do it as well and as cost effectively as possible for the citizens of the 5 counties. So I'm dismounting. Would you like to say anything further?
You did great.
Okay. Can I get that in writing?
I think everybody in the world heard it.
I didn't get the look.
No?
Okay.
All right. Commissioner Kennard.
Yeah, this is just, I would like for this board to formally ask that it be brought to the MPO, to have the MPO do a traffic count and produce a report for Citrus County for our roads, the different segments of the road, like what they produce for Hernando County. Now, when I asked about, I asked our MPO director, you know, where's ours at? And his comment was, well, Hernando has concurrency and Citrus County does not, so we've not gone down this avenue of producing a report for Citrus County. Then in conversation with staff, our staff about it, what I heard was that the county was preparing to do one of these reports on our own. And my comment was, if the MPO is footing the bill for Hernando County to do this, to you know, to manage their traffic network, their roads, then certainly the MPO should be there for Citrus County. Whether we have concurrency or not, we still are responsible for managing every segment of our county roads anyway. And it would be nice to see those traffic counts for the state roads in our county as well, so that we can properly manage the way people move about our county. So, the blessing of this board, I'd like to take it to the MPO and see if we can get their support.
Very good. Is that a form of a motion?
I would make a motion that we ask the MPO, we formally ask the MPO to do a traffic count study for Citrus County.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kennard and a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public comment? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Commissioner Barrick.
Last week, I went to the Career Source quarterly meeting, and I'm very, very happy that the gentleman that I put up for the Veterans Representative, Mr. Mike Belkin, was approved by the other commissioners from the consortium. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knows, every one of our county slots is filled for the Career Source. So that, you know, that made everybody happy. We actually have a full board now.
Fantastic. Was that it?
Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Finnegan.
Just a couple of updates. I know everyone couldn't make it to the sheriff's media presentation of the body cameras. And I went to just really go see how the body cameras were working. But I wanted to talk to you about it, and whoever couldn't go, I brought back the booklet that they gave us. I was so impressed with the technology and the presentation out there. You know, probably like all of us, I thought, okay, body cameras, that'll be a good thing, you know, for both deputies and our citizens. But the amount of money it's going to save this county just in deputy time, because in addition to body cameras, unlike many other counties in Florida, they have an AI capability for report writing. Wow. So if you imagine every call that a deputy goes on, and one of the majors said about 45 minutes to write the report. So think about how many calls one deputy gets in a day and how many reports that deputy has to take time to write. And then if it's end of shift, you know, if it's like child abuse, it has to be done, so there's overtime. If not, they may be days before they're back on shift to write these reports, right? Which makes it probably more difficult to write and then goes to the state attorney's office. To save this time, AI, because of the body camera, can get the exact wording of everything that was said, create a report in seconds, but then, so there's no issues, the deputy then looks over every aspect of the report, and the report cannot be accepted until they fill in things or take out places so that, you know,
It's
it
like
can't be.
change it 10 or 20%.
Yes.
I'm so glad you brought this up, by
Yeah,
the way. I
wasn't
was
it so
blown
impressive?
away by how
But-
impressive that was.
But I saw it as saving the taxpayers' money because of all the extra
Mm-hmm.
deputy time that we need them on calls, answering calls that has before been taken up in report writing time, is now going to be fixed. Many other things, I can't give the presentation, obviously, that the sheriff's office did, but I'm telling you, it was so impressed, the way the body cameras work, the magnetic field, you know, when they take out a gun or if they ignite their taser, the cameras come on. It deletes every 30 seconds because it's always running, but once it's on, it saves the last 30 seconds without audio. So in case something was missed, a shooter or something, when they start running or before they can get the gun pulled, the benefit not only to our deputies, but the people of Citrus County, it was impressive. And of course, at the end of it, with the technology package, they have a virtual reality training, which yours truly got to participate in. It was a lot of fun. I told the sheriff, if I'm not doing this gig, maybe I'd come work for him. He was very open to that, so. But really, kudos to Sheriff Vincent and all the people at the Sheriff's Office. I think this is going to be really good for everybody moving ahead. The second thing I wanted to just mention, not that there's any movement, anything that the board talks about or anything that I'm putting any amount of time into, I feel like I should always just keep the board involved. So I know I had talked about practice fields for the kids, and it's kind of morphed into maybe some money down the road or some surveying for property that we have in sports complex. I'm entertaining ideas and maybe going to just look at a public-private partnership at this point. So I know it's big everything. The county needs so many things. So if the board's going to be talking about this in the future, I'm going to see if we can't have other options where the taxpayers aren't paying for everything. So nothing's before us yet, and we don't really have anything yet, and I don't know how long it's going to take to explore, but hopefully when we have projects like this, if whoever of us can explore to save the taxpayers and make Citrus County better, I hope we're all for that. But as I learn anything, I will constantly keep you informed.
Well, thank you. I don't have anything today, Commissioner, or I kind of want to keep calling you a commissioner. Maybe you act like one, I don't know.
Oh, no. No, ma'am.
Ms. Lynn, do you have anything?
I'd just like to say for the record that this Friday at 1 o'clock in room 166 will be the special master hearing for the Southworth mining application. Just want to put that out there just one more time so everyone hears that before Friday, but otherwise I have nothing.
All right, well, thank you.
Madam Chair, one quick comment that I forgot during my portion of the agenda here is that the Keep Citrus County Beautiful meeting, our last meeting, we talked again about the coastal cleanup that will occur in September. It's the third Saturday in September, and unfortunately mine is already booked, so I will not be able to attend. But certainly if you've got the Saturday open, they'll be looking for different groups to put together teams that can go out and help clean up our shorelines.
Wonderful. All right. Last open to the public. Anyone wishing to address the board, please come forward. Please state your name for the record and your address, and you will have 3 minutes.
Paul Darty, 3481 West King B Street. I'd like to redirect my comments and observations regarding the H1 presentation all about roads. I looked through this thing before I came here, and it's nice, but the last 10 pages really have the meat of what we need to learn about this road situation in Citrus County. On page 41, they talked about the PCI, how you got to keep your roads up. It's going to cost us $40 million a year estimated. If you look at the taxes being taken in right now. On page 47, it showed 9 million approximately for gas tax. And on page 48, it showed about 3.2 million for impact fees and 7.8 million for transportation ad valorem, about $20 million in total. You're currently collecting about half of what they say you need just to keep up with what you've got. Then they go on to present things on pages 44, 45, and 46, where 44 is kind of the small potatoes roads, and it's about $20 million a year, which is what you're taking in and you're repaving. On page 45, they talked about the state-county partnerships, where the state is paying 2/3 roughly of what we're doing to repave some semi-major roads, I guess you'd say, mostly out toward Inverness. And then they talked on page 46 about this large group of roads from Cardinal up to Grover, Cleveland, Homosassa Trail, Venable, Rock Crusher, and then one all by itself, the north part of 491. The price tags put on some of these things were kind of interesting. The little roads, the ones we got to repave anyway, about $300,000 a mile. The bigger ones with state help, about $2.5 million a mile. And these less than 40 miles of roads that we're talking about, these major roads you want to do something with, $25 million a mile. It's north of $1 billion that they're estimating for these 6, and 5 of them are concentrated in a rather small portion of Citrus County between Crystal River and Homosassa, almost like we're looking for explosive growth. I'm just wondering how we're going to get all the money for that, and is it really necessary? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Seeing none, we'll close open to the public. So Phil, I think he's leaving.
His name is Paul.
Paul. Just to address some of what you were saying, the 491, Rock Crusher, Venable, Cardinal, the big dollar, that's capacity. That's a road expansion. And then just the others is the maintaining the residential roads, and then the collector roads is what we put in 25% to 75% with the state for repaving those. So that's the SCOP program. If you go online on the county website, you can see, and it's in that presentation as well, the SCOP roads, that's on a 5-year program. We know which ones are coming up every year, and those were identified. So you're right. I mean, it's a big number, but you know, that 180 is the last 7 miles of 491. Sorry. No, I'm sorry. I just wanted to let you know that, but I'm happy to talk to you, or I'm sure Commissioner Kennard would talk to you anytime about the roads. Thank you. Oh.
Madam Chair, I think it's also important to note that the monies that we collect or expect to collect from impact fees can only be used for capacity projects. Those can't be used for maintaining or resurfacing the roads. And much of those, or many of those dollars, are already committed to paying off bonds that we took out to expand roads, to expand this second phase of 491. Is the 486 bond, is that the 2015 bond that's out there? That one, as we heard earlier, Barbara told us those are 20-year bonds. So that one, you know, those impact fee dollars are already committed. The gas tax money that we get, we certainly use quite a bit of that towards road resurfacing, but then a bunch of that is also used for maintenance of, you know, road signs that get plowed over, or the guardrails that are insanely expensive, and those things tend to get wiped out. Certainly the pothole repair program. So it's not all just a lump sum of money that we can put off. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of money there, but some of it, like the impact fees, are statutorily required to be used only for this narrow scope of work, which in that particular case, it's capacity projects. But Yeah, those are big numbers. And we do what we can to move along down that road, I suppose, no pun intended. But anyway, thank you. Thanks for being here and sticking around with us today.
Yeah.
And I'll talk with you about roads anytime.
All right, next on our agenda is advisory board announcements. The Historic Resources Advisory Board announces open positions, accept the resignation of Melissa Bowermaster, and announce openings for 2 unexpired terms, a regular board member and 1 alternate board member on the Historic Resource Advisory Board.
Madam Chair, motion to accept the resignation of Melissa Bowermaster and announce for new people.
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Finnegan and a second by Commissioner Davis. Is there any public input? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We are adjourned till 5:01. Or recess. God, I always get that backwards. Thanks for keeping me straight.